I want to take you now to the White House. President Trump is signing the immigration bill inspired by Laken Riley.
10 presidents have tried very hard to do but failed. Most of the people we're talking about have not been going to their federal offices in many, many years, from even before COVID. But they have nevertheless been paid. Some have worked, some haven't worked, and most of the studies say that some have just gone through the motions. We may ask these people to prove that they didn't have another job during their so-called employment with the United States of America, because if they did, that would be unlawful, as you understand. A lot of people are getting paychecks, but they're actually working other jobs, so they'll have to prove that to us, that they weren't. In any event, we're requiring them to show up to work or be terminated. We think a very substantial number of people will not show up to work, and therefore our government will get smaller and more efficient, and that's what we've been looking to do for many, many decades, frankly. Thank you. In addition, there was a short-term pause or funding freeze on certain discretionary spending payments, such as government grants, only for us to quickly look at the scams, dishonesty, waste, and abuse that's taken place in our government for too long. As was explicitly stated, this in no way affected Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or other entitlements that Americans depend on. I've made abundantly clear from the very first day that I ran from office. That was a long time ago now. That's 2015. If you think about it, I announced in 2015, and we won in 2016. We did very well in 2020, but we did really well just recently. And I'm restating right now to correct any confusion that the media has purposely and somehow, for whatever reason, created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid have not been affected by any action we're taking in any way, shape, or form. We are merely looking at parts of the big bureaucracy where there has been tremendous waste and fraud and abuse. In that process, we identified and stopped $50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas. 50 million. And you know what's happened to them? They've used them as a method of making bombs. How about that? We stopped an attempt to make an illicit payment for illegal alien resettlement. We canceled $181 million in DEI training contracts. This is just for the training of people in DEI, which has been terminated and completely terminated. And we paused $1.7 billion in unauthorized payments to foreign organizations, including stopping more than $40 million that was on its way out the door to the very corrupt World Health Organization, which has not done its job and not done it properly. We also, we also blocked $45 million for diversity scholarships in Burma. 45, that's a lot of money for diversity scholarships in Burma. You can imagine where that money went. These were the types of payments, and many others. I could stand here all day and tell you things that we found, and we have to find them quickly because we want the money to flow to proper places. But these were the payments and types of payments affected by the temporary freeze, and the American people strongly support these efforts. I talked about it during the campaign, and they voted for us in record numbers. Every single day, we're now putting America first and fighting to get the most out of every single tax dollar for our great citizens. We've gathered this afternoon to take another historic action, however. In a few moments, the Laken Riley Act will become the very first bill that I proudly sign into law as the 47th President of the United States. Laken was a brilliant and beautiful 22-year-old nursing student from Georgia, the best in her class. She was always the best. They would say, Laken, how do you do this? And what do you do? They were always asking her questions. She was respected by everybody, even her teachers. They respected her so much. From the time she was in first grade, Laken knew she wanted to spend her time caring for others. That's what she did. To her friends and classmates, she was a light of warmth and kindness in every single room. To her parents and family, she was everything in the world. They've had a miserable period of time. Just after 9 a.m. last February 22nd, Laken went out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia, but she was just never returned. She never came back, did she, huh? Parents are here, sister, all of her relatives. While on her run, Laken was attacked, viciously assaulted, beaten, brutalized, and murdered by an illegal alien gang member who was set loose into our country by the last administration. We are deeply honored to be joined today by Laken's parents, Allison and John, and her sister, Lauren. Thank you very much. Thank you. So sad. We were together right after that happened, and it's a tremendous tribute to your daughter, what's taking place today. That's all I can say, but it's so sad we have to be doing it at all. Thank you very much for being here. To Laken's family, we will keep Laken's memory alive in our hearts forever, everyone's hearts. With today's action, her name will also live forever in the laws of our country, and this is a very important law. This is something that has brought Democrats and Republicans together. That's not easy to do. Laken did it. Laken did it. America will never, ever forget Laken Hope Riley. The vicious criminal who murdered Precious Laken was an illegal alien member of the barbaric Venezuelan prison gang known as Tren de Aragua. He trespassed across our southern border in 2022 and was apprehended by Border Patrol, but under the cruel policies of the last administration, instead of being deported, as he should have been, he was released into the United States, as were millions of other people, many of them very dangerous people. And you see what we're doing. We're getting them the hell out of here. He was soon arrested again in New York City on charges of endangering a child, but because of New York City's deadly sanctuary policies, as we have in California and many other places, which we're going to end them, he was released again to reoffend. The Biden administration then provided this illegal alien criminal with a free, taxpayer-funded flight from New York to Georgia, where he was arrested yet again, constantly, this time for stealing from a Walmart along with his gang member brother, who was a bad one. Only after being released a third time by the U.S. law enforcement did this cold-blooded criminal go out in that fateful morning hunting for women on whom to prey. That's what he did. He hunted. It was like a hunter. We're going to show him who the hunter is. This horrific atrocity should never have been allowed to happen. And as president, I'm fighting every single day to ensure that such a tragedy never happens again. We don't want this to happen. And under the law, thank you. Under the law I'm signing today, the Department of Homeland Security will be required to detain all illegal aliens who have been arrested for theft, burglary, larceny, shoplifting, assaulting a police officer, murder, or any crime that results in death or serious injury. In addition, for the first time ever, this act gives state governments the ability to sue the federal government for immediate injunctive relief if any future administration ever again refuses to enforce the immigration laws of the United States, like happened for 4 long years. And that was happening for 4 long years, frightful years. amazing. You'd say, how can people do this? How can they allow this to happen? How can they allow criminals to pour into our country and then try and defend it? And they're still trying to defend it, but they can't. That's why I'm here instead of somebody else, actually. It's the biggest reason. I believe it's the single biggest reason. Inflation was horrible. Many things were horrible during that administration. When you look at what took place in Afghanistan, the way they got out, not that they got out, but the way so many things were horrible. But to me, this was the worst of all. It's a landmark law that we're doing today. It's going to save countless innocent American lives. I want to thank every House Republican, every Senate Republican, as well as the 12 Senate Democrats and the 48 House Democrats who voted to pass this vitally important bill, and many of them are with us today, and I really do appreciate it. And I very much especially appreciate the bipartisan support. The Democrats, really a big percentage of them came through, and plenty of them wanted to. They probably felt they couldn't, but they really wanted to. That they don't understand that would have made them a lot more popular, would have made them a lot better with their people. The ones that didn't are going to be, they're going to be sorry, because the people are not going to forget that they wouldn't sign. This is a perfect, incredible tribute to an unbelievable young lady. We're joined today by many great supporters of our new strong border policies, and they are indeed strong, including Vice President Vance, thank you, JD, the Secretary Scott Bessent, who just got approved, by the way. Where's Scott? He just got approved. Scott, I'm very impressed. Got a lot of Democrat votes, too. He got a lot of Democrat votes. That's great. I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'll have to think about that. Secretary of Homeland Security, who's going to be fantastic. I know her so well, and I know it's probably not complimentary because she is a woman, but she is tough. Where is she? Where is Christy? Christy, great. Stand up, please. You have such an important job to do. Really great. Thank you very much. And don't let that look fool you. That look is, she's tough, and she cannot stand what she's having to sit here and even listen to this today. Another one who's done a job like nobody that I've seen in a long time, Tom Homan. He's my friend, but he is something special. He's something special. Great. And Tom and Christy, the numbers are unbelievable. What's happened? It's like just shut down. Nobody thought that was even possible. It's just shut down. They showed an area that a year ago had thousands and thousands of people rushing into our country. And today there was nobody there. It was like a beautiful sight. And also Senate Majority Whip John Barrasso. Great guy, great guy. Thank you, John. And I also want to thank the bill sponsors, Senator Katie Britt. Katie, thank you, Katie. And Congressman Mike Collins. And Mike, you were fantastic from Georgia. He took this. He loves his state, and he took this very personally. So it's thank you very much, Mike. As well as Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley. Chuck is here someplace. Chuck, thank you very much. You look great. And House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, who's a special guy, special man. And House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Mark Green. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. And we have many other congressmen and senators, but I'm not going to introduce, because this is about your daughter. This is about something that's so important, and we're going to just go along. Thank you also. We have to say Burt Jones is in the room, and Burt is your lieutenant governor, and he was on this like you wouldn't believe. Thank you very much. I see you sitting there. Thank you very much. So we have state, local officials, we have law enforcement organizations, we have everybody. Most of them are in the room or represented in the room, and they're incredible people, and I've never seen them come together like they have for this. I've done many of these, not of this kind, but different bills, different passages having to do with many different things, from homeland security to inner security to taxes to 50 different items. I've never seen such support as you have today and as your great daughter has today. So I've never seen anything like it. And we have to thank your daughter for that, because she's going to save a lot of lives. She's going to be responsible for saving a lot of lives. So I'd like to just say to the Angel families, I've been with them and they've been with me from 2015 when I first got this crazy idea in my head to run for president because we can do better as a country. I want to thank so many of the people that are here that have been the angel moms, and we call them angel moms, but they're angel families, fathers and sons and daughters, but they've suffered tremendously like you have for no reason whatsoever. I want to thank Alexis Nungari, the mother of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungari, murdered last summer by 2 illegal alien gang members released into the United States by Joe Biden's open border, stupid policies. And thank you very much, Alexis.
We've been watching President Trump. He is expected to soon sign the Laken Riley Act, named after the nursing student who was murdered by an undocumented Venezuelan immigrant last year. The law adds nonviolent offenses, including burglary and shoplifting, to the list of charges for which undocumented migrants can be detained and eventually deported. It's the first piece of legislation to be signed by President Trump since taking the oath of office for a second term. The bill received the support of 46 House Democrats and 12 senators, many from so-called battleground states where border reform is a key issue. Most Democrats oppose the bill, saying it could be used to strip due process guarantees in the Constitution. They also call the law an unfunded mandate, since it does not allow for any way to pay for the increased enforcement. The president also talked about the rescindment of a memo from the Office of Management and Budget that paused all federal funding, essentially froze it to nonprofits and governments, not affecting individual payments for things like Social Security. He said in response to the rescinding of the memo, which the White House press secretary says is not a rescinding of the freeze, just of the memo, meaning that the administration we believe that the administration is still going to be taking a look at all programs and where government funding is going. The president saying that the whole point was to look at, in his words, scams, dishonesty taking place in our government. He said parts of the big bureaucracy where there has been tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. He claimed that millions of dollars are being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas, repeating a statement made by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt yesterday. But according to The Times, who spoke with Andrew Miller, a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Israeli-Palestinian Affairs under former President Biden, he called the claim outlandish and said it's possible that money is being put aside for sexual health or something of that nature, which would include gynecology, but definitely not condoms alone. They also found a U.S. aid report issued in September that said that millions in funding were allocated by USAID for condoms and female contraceptives in 2023, but not a cent of that seems to have gone to Gaza. Again, that is from The Times. I want to bring in CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi at the White House. Olivia, let's go ahead first and talk about the bill at hand. How significant is it that this is the first the president is signing in his second term?
Well, this is huge. This is very significant for Trump that this is his first major piece of legislation that he is signing into office. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation. Our reporters in the room tell us that Senator John Fetterman, who was a huge proponent of this bill, was in the room for that signing, which was quite notable. This makes good on a campaign promise. You know, Trump made Laken Riley really central to his reelection campaign and kind of a target and a focus of immigration specifically. I was there at a rally in Rome, Georgia, back in March, I believe, when he brought up Laken Riley's family just about a week after her unfortunate passing. And it was raw, and it was emotional, and it was a huge moment. And it's quite notable that, you know, here we are about 11 months later, and he's signing in a law that has her name on it regarding immigration in this country. Now, the law itself requires the detention of migrants by federal officials if they have committed a crime such as theft, arson, burglary, anything of that sort, for them to be detained. And of course, Trump is looking to create mass deportations across the country. We're watching those unfold over the last several days that he's taken office. So quite notable that this is the first piece of legislation that he has signed in her name with her family there, as this was such a central focus point, really, to his reelection campaign.
Olivia, you had said committed a crime, but really the controversy here is that the detention could include not just conviction, but even being charged with one of those crimes, which is why some lawmakers were against this.
Yeah, that's why we saw some Democratic pushback, just to clarify on that law exactly what it meant.
Let's go ahead and talk quickly about the president's remarks toward this idea of freezing funding. It caused confusion when the memo was released on Monday evening. Confusion still exists today because the administration is saying this doesn't rescind the order, or it just rescinds the memo, but not sort of the act of looking at all these programs. Can you elaborate on that, on what we know right now?
Yeah, the confusion persists on this particular issue. We know, of course, yesterday that all federal funding was supposed to be paused until the Trump administration could really review all fundings and making sure that they're in line with their priorities and objectives as it relates to DEI, other spending of what Trump calls, quote, pet projects. So that was their focus, but it was unclear whether it related to Medicaid, Social Security, what states could access from the federal government.
Right, because the administration said it wouldn't affect those programs, but some states saw their Medicaid portals, essentially their websites, go down.
Yeah, even Virginia, which is run by a Republican governor, they clarified to me yesterday that their portal was down for a brief period of time, but they're not linking it to this federal funding pause. So we got this statement just a short while ago from Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, that I want to read. And she says, in light of the injunction that we saw yesterday from a federal judge asking for a blanket pause on the ceasing of federal funding until they could have a hearing about it next Monday. She said in light of that, the OMB rescinded the memo to end any confusion on the federal policy created by the court ruling. All of this to say, a lot of finger pointing regarding this federal funding, who it impacts, what it impacts, and they say that there is still that freeze on it at this point in time so that they can still review each policy and what it impacts and if it's in line with Trump's agenda. So we're still seeking some further clarity on exactly what this all means, but that confusion is persisting right now.
Okay. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you as always.